think it started off at a very young age, growing up in a family that always sold stuff. So my father and his brothers owned a hotel and a restaurant and a bottle store and a ladies' bar. And there would always be things on sale. And there would always be sort of like, I was always interested in the way we placed the liquor on the shelves, and how the colors worked and how we presented stuff on plates. And growing up in South Africa, in Durban, we had to work in the business. And so you started learning a bit of trade, and you started learning how to work with people and how to work with consumers. And it was quite gratifying. And my grandmother used to come to India quite often, and she used to dress brides. So she would come to India, fill up a suitcase of bridal clothing, and then bring it back to South Africa. And that was always very exciting. Again, texture, color, and then listening to her about the bride's complaint or what the mother wanted was also quite exciting. And I didn't know that that was a lesson in retail for me, because, forward into the future, those are all the things that I'm doing. I'm involved in making the consumer's experience better. I'm involved in customer communication and also selling magical moments. So, that was a sort of like a learning ground up. Then obviously I went on to finish school, and then was at a crossroads and kind of said, well, what do you want to do with your life? Two choices: get into the family business, which is not what I wanted to do. And the second one was, well, pursue something in the creative field. So I went ahead and I applied for design, and that's how I got into fashion. Back in South Africa, you could have a part-time job and study at the same time. I worked from the time I was in sort of first year all the way to getting my final job. So I got into Edgar's customer care department, doing the PA announcements. Estee Lauder has something special for you, so come along to the ground floor. Yeah, that sort of like voice. And that went pretty well. As soon as I graduated, a woman called Honey said to me, listen, would you want to work in VM? And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, I knew nothing about VM. I knew about ringing a bell and making announcements, but I could, make stories out of clothes and put them together and curate. So I started off in visual merchandising. And then Woolworths South Africa in 1999 were basically looking for affirmative action candidates. South Africa had just come out of being, had just become a democracy, so a lot of things were opening up. And we had to handwrite a letter to express why I would be the right candidate. And went through vigorous interviews, from psychometrics to basically doing a project and pitching it in Cape Town. And eventually I got the job. And so I left Durban to Cape Town and spent almost 17 years in Cape Town working for Woolworths South Africa. So while I was working at Woolworths, I also got a year out where I could spend some time in the UK, attached to Marks and Spencer's. And then I spent some time at Country Road and Trenery, which is what they own, just sort of absorbing and understanding how international retail worked. When I got to M&S for those few months, I just watched quietly for almost 6 months, just shadowed the head of design, went to all of these meetings and just did nothing but just observed. And then when I came back to South Africa, I took up a position of head of design for menswear. And all of that sort of like mentoring and looking and learning taught me a hell of a lot. And while doing that, I got a call from Trent, from a guy called Sanjay. And he said, would you consider moving to India to do menswear? We had a conversation and he finally said, come out to India and come look at the stores. And would you be interested in a menswear role? And I said, yeah, sure. Came out to India, got in at the crack of dawn, like 1 o'clock in the morning, met him at around 8 o'clock, did the stores, had a conversation, had a dinner with Mr. Fold All that night, who was the MD. The next morning, saw Mr. Tata for a catch-up. And as I was going to the airport, he said to me, well, if you're interested in the job, it's yours. When can you start? And at that point in time, I kind of went, yeah, now. I can do that right now. And even though my career at Woolworths was going in the right direction and I was doing what I wanted to do, I just felt that there was something vibrant about this situation, and it just felt new. And one had to, you know what, leave the comfort zones behind of steady progression. And I think to take a leap of faith and just kind of go, well, hopefully this is going to work and hopefully something's going to come of it. My dad spent some time in India, and so the connection to India has always been there. So when I finally came to Mumbai, I kind of thought this was going to be the most amazing adventure of my life. And why not, you know? Because if you don't take risks when there are good opportunities right under your nose, and if you're going to overthink an opportunity, then you're never going to know. And if you're never going to know, I don't think you're ever going to progress and you're ever going to experience something different. And my experience with India has been overwhelmingly delightful. And the youth of India is just so ready for anything and everything that is exciting. And it's as global as anywhere in the world. You know, the smartphone has made everything so democratic. Everyone is aware of what's happening. I couldn't tell you a trend that nobody else knows or knows the word of. But yeah, 10 years ago in the world, you couldn't do that. 10 years later, everyone knows the dupe of the thing that is the coolest thing. And if you go down Linking Road, you're getting it faster than any store. So India's energy is just magnificent. I don't think Indian retail is far apart from any of the global players, and everyone is looking at India as the next big hot ticket. Well, South Africa went through a stage of just being white at some point, and you know, we have a very large black population and a very wealthy white Indian and black population, but it's a small slab. What we had to recognize very fast is, what do these customers want? And, you know, their body shapes are different, their skin tones are different, and the appeal is different. A black female consumer finds her curves very sexy, whereas a other race consumer may not find it sexy and they would want to cover up everything, where she's okay to show everything. Coming to India, everyone being Indian, you then realize that the geographies are different. And then you realize that, you know, in this vastness, there vary degrees of temperatures. And there are colors that appeal differently on different occasions. And the one thing we always wanted to do as a brand is position ourselves as having a global savvy, but also being very respectful of what's happening locally. And, you know, in trying to balance both of these, it can be confusing and it can be quite jarring. But I think because we've got these very clear brand rules on what we will not do and what we stand for, it helps navigate the buyer in a much simpler way. The trend is what we sell. So, and that's the first thing that we always consider. And then how does the trend fit in with all of the multiple things that are happening in India? Because you can't be everything to everyone. You know, working at Trent, you know, being a lifestyle brand, we're very clear that we want to offer consumers the best curation and the best opportunities to service that time in life. You know, whether it's a job interview or a night out or a day at the pool, or something to wear to a cocktail party or an ethnic event. But it's our point of view of what style is and not, you know, what everyone else is doing. The thing to recognize about the Indian consumer is that they are value seekers at every level. You know, it's not negotiable if it's not a super cool price. I think for us as a brand, recognizing that first price, right price is so important, because when a consumer looks at a garment, they should look at that beautiful piece that they're going to feel joy in, and not the big sale price on top of it that's going to make them make a decision as to whether they should buy it or not. And that's tricky in a market of so much of discounts. So paying attention to the form, the fit, the function, the color, how it's laid out in the store, and making that a joyful moment when someone enters creates that interaction with the garment versus I'm coming into you because you always have something on discount. Our narrative is I'm coming into you because you always have something new every week and you're going to surprise me this week and I'm never going to expect that from you. And I think that's what Trent and Westside likes to do. You've got to have the right processes in place and you have to have all your partners aligned. And I think that has been a remarkable journey with everyone who works at Westside, that everybody is so interconnected, and there's this beat of the swim lane that everyone gets, and they prioritize these lead times and they prioritize these sign-offs, and it's very professional. A designer buying team knows that on this date they have to land X, Y, and Z. And if they don't land it on that date, that's missed revenue. In order to get to that date, everything is very well calculated. Everything is mapped to a space plan. So we know where we're going to place things before it is even manufactured. Those space plans are then designed and communicated to stores so that on a Friday, by a certain time, all of this product is shop floor ready. And then your e-commerce pages mimic that. So there's a very big mindfulness around being a 360-degree landed brand. And it's one of the things, we've been pioneering on the marketing side, because when I go online, I don't want to see a conversation about something that's not relevant on the shop floor. And I think we're one of the few brands, if not the only brand in the country, that controls our own e-commerce and controls our own stores. So I think in order for you to be successful as a retailer, you've got to control your destiny because you know what you want to look like and feel like. Being head of customer means it's every touch point within the brand, from VM and store design to customer communication, social media, the beautification of e-commerce, the banners, what the language is, what the brand rules are. All of those I kind of built because I sold clothes and because, I understood not at a pure marketing level how customers behave, but at a sell-through level how customers behave. So in dealing with consumers on a daily basis, directly and indirectly, listening happens not just through asking someone, hey, how do you like this? Because you'll never get the right answer from anyone because there's the mood and how I'm feeling, and you're never going to get a right answer. But sell-through tells you whether someone likes it or not. And if you're selling that at a fast rate of sale, then you know that's a vibe. Also, when you put something new in and it's unexpected to your brand rule. So we have newness at the front of the store. Every week that hotspot or that area has to be brand new because that's going to tempt a consumer to see something new. Once that lifts up, then the customer is moving in a different direction. But being in a space of fashion, you're not looking back, you're always looking forward. And I think retail is a balance of art and science. And it is definitely about not believing you know everything. There is social media and people are looking for platforms and stages to express themselves. And clothing is one of those things people put on to express themselves. And I think from just a basic Mandarin collar top and a basic sari to opportunities of, well, what else can I wear to make me look and feel more confident is where the narrative is in India at all levels, whether it is at a supermarket level or at a premium level. I think the most important thing is to not assume the customer doesn't know, and not assume the customer doesn't know style, and not treat consumers with the lowest common denominator thought process. Oh, they'll just buy it because it's cheap. I think they'll buy it because it's beautiful, and they'll buy it because it fits well, and they'll buy it because the experience in your store or your space felt joyful, and there was a lot of dignity to that. Clothes are a very practical thing. It's utility. You could wear a white shirt and a black pant every day and no one's going to give a damn about what you look like. But you could have a white shirt that is cut really beautifully and sort of like caresses the right parts of your body, and the collar falls really nicely. And someone will take notice of that shirt and they'll go, wow, that's a nice white shirt, because it's just not an ordinary white shirt. I think that's where balance plays an important role. I think when you're looking at trends, they can't be denied. And it starts off with film, music, on the street, and then it comes from the street to the catwalk, and from the catwalk to the shop floor, and from the shop floor, you wearing it. So that process, be it 6 months, 3 months, or 120 days, there's a narrative constantly playing on social media. Barbie, digital lavender, the millennial pink or the new pink or whatever it is. You will see in a feed these things popping up. And, unconsciously, you'll start migrating to it in a store. You don't know what you want to buy when you go into a store. How many times have you walked into a store with absolute certainty saying, I'm going to get myself a flare-cut denim jeans that sits below my navel and kind of makes my booty feel like X? You don't know that. You just know that I've seen a flare leg, and then you'll probably have one friend in your clique who dares to put it on. And she sort of, recalls back in the day when her mother wore it. And then there's a conversation about, time, 70s, what happened. And then people are dressing that way. And then you find the music slightly altering. And you'll find cover versions of those songs coming through. And then all of a sudden we're in this nostalgic moment of how the past has influenced the future. And that's why that cycle keeps happening. The journey Westside's on with design from when I first arrived to where it is now, if I talk about our store design, we've moved light years ahead in the last 12 months. The spaces are airier, they are larger. We're opening up so the consumer can see everything in the store. And so they can navigate with great ease and not be in these little, boxes. And I think that's going to be exciting going forward, because normally when you go into a department store, there's little squares of brands and you hop from one to the other. And when you hop from one to the other, there's such a difference in the appeal. Whereas Westside's trying to create this lifestyle where you navigate through denim into casual, into smart, into formal. You get to the back of the store and there's your lingerie and your beauty and your footwear, and you get close to the change room. So you pick up all of these things along the way, and then you have an experience in the change room. And I think looking at all of those touch points for consumer is a non-verbal gesture of great experience. And I think that's where design is. It shouldn't be in your face and it shouldn't be thrown at you. You should experience things in an organic way and it should feel like you belong with it and it belongs with you. The stores are the billboards. So having more amazing billboards with more exciting experiences definitely feels exciting. Why not come into Westside and get a sort of like a wash and blow, or your nails done, or your eyebrows done, or have a cup of coffee, or find your favorite Westerners class where you could either do a stretching class or a Zumba class. Why can't Westside be a hub of connect and community building? And I think the more you allow your space to be a space where not only sells fashion and is transactional, but also kind of cares, you start building stickier relationships with potential consumers or people who already love you. I think India as a whole needs to invest more in craft and bring back all of those beautiful artisans and all of those merchants who made beautiful things, whether it was weaving or embroidery or dyeing. I think we need to nourish that and take responsibility to make sure that it doesn't die. I think slow is as important as fast. And I don't think it's either or. I think being mindful about the choices one makes in purchasing clothing is also important, because to have a look at where it's made, will tell you how far I traveled to get to you. The joy of Westside is 99% is Indian origin and made here. I think there's also a movement towards owning a few good pieces that don't date and then layering them on with some fast pieces. But will fashion be out of fashion? No. And will people stop buying? No. Will people move out of stores into online only? No. Because humans are about experience. And whenever there's something new to experience, we're going to take a chance and try it. But when it comes to clothing, touching, feeling, caressing, that relationship, I think, is going to become bigger. Having an experience in a store where you find it to be a safe space, where the clothing feels like your kind of language, and where you're at liberty to try on, experiment, and no one's going to judge you, that is what I think is going to be in style.